Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Steel episode number 201 based on novel. So let's start. The three devil gods flashed out from behind and respectfully saluted Sami Gina. Their bodies flashed into three streamers and flew straight into the air. The army of devils had launched again. Compared with last time, this army of devils had made a qualitative leap in terms of both quantity and quality. With a total of more than 100,000, they once again pounced on the southeast fortress all at once. On the ground, the wolf devil race and the leopard devil race rushed forward rapidly under the cover of the huge flame devils. In the air, the previously defeated bird devils and two-headed devils launched a more powerful attack, and more importantly, more than a dozen spore devils appeared between them. Spore devils were not only the fastest flying magic arms of the devil's clan, but they also had a strong limiting effect on the enemy. Its pesky slime, no matter what kind of occupation the other side was, would become very timid. This time the devil army was led by the devil gods, which was very different from the previous exploratory attacks. Looking at the horrifying devil army in the distance, Jiao Yonghao's expression changed. Such a devil army would have caused heavy losses to the southeast fortress. There was even a danger of being breached. The Devil's Clan's 72 Devil Pillar had different shapes, but they did not often appear on the battlefield, so even as the former master of the warrior temple, Jiao Yonghao did not know the strength of these three devil gods. However, from the distance, their three bright devil pillars that could be seen meant that these three devil gods were definitely not at the bottom of the list. Lord Jiao, don't worry. I know these three devil gods, Yanmi, standing next to Jiao Yonghao, said in a low voice. All the eternal heroes wore a broad black cloak that completely covered their bodies. Hearing the calm voice of Yanmi, Jiao Yonghao could not help feeling ashamed that he couldn't remain calm enough in the face of the strong devil's clan. That's the 33rd devil god, Garbo, the 36th devil god, Stolas, and the 37th devil god, Phoenix. These three guys are mainly auxiliary and magical body. They play an important role in the battlefield, but the individual fighting ability is average. Despite the fact that Yanmi had been asleep for thousands of years, his understanding of the devil god was much better than that of the top echelons of the warrior temple. Among the 72 devil pillars of the devil's clan, except for the name of the god of devils, the names of other devil gods would never change. In other words, no matter what generation the moon god was, his name would be Agares, and the star demon god would be Vashak. That was why he was able to name the three devil gods in one fell swoop. Hearing the names, Jiao Yonghao immediately got the information of the three devil gods in his mind and said in a deep voice, Garbo is an arcane god who is good at performing arcane magic and is mainly full-scale auxiliary. Among the 72 devil pillars devil gods, he is almost the only fully auxiliary devil god out there, and his individual's combat effectiveness is very weak. However, if he can rank 33, then he must be extremely strong in terms of assistance work. Stolas' title is the Curse God. He is good at all kinds of curse magic, which is very annoying. Phoenix, known as the Dark Phoenix, is good at fire and dark magic. Although he ranks last among the three devil gods, he is the most powerful one here. After talking about the abilities of these three devil gods, Jiao Yonghao's heart was even heavier. The role these three devil gods could play on the battlefield was absolutely terrifying. It seemed that Sami Gina, the undead devil god, had not really lost his calmness because of his failure just now. This wave of enemy attacks was not easy to resist. Leave Garbo and the spore devils to me. Yanmi said faintly, the devils don't know we exist, so I'll send them a gift. However, I only have one chance, so I can only take care of one of the three devil gods. Once I attack one, the other two are bound to be deified. It's an uphill battle. While they were talking and laying out their tactics, the army of devils in the distance was getting closer and closer. The arcane devil god Garbo looked like a human being, with long dark blue hair and a luxurious silver robe, but his appearance was a little creepy, with a hooked nose, toad eyes and a thick blue staff in his hand. He did not have any wings, so when he flew, it was entirely based on the control of the elements. As he flew forward, Garbo casted a spell. Soon, a layer of dark blue light shrouded in the army of devils below. All of a sudden, nearly 10,000 devils in the front were covered by this blue light, and their speed suddenly skyrocketed. Arcane magic, light colony spell. Regarding pure auxiliary magic, the arcane devil god Garbo had a great range of auxiliary magic which was unmatched by any human wizards. His casting speed was very fast, and after the light colony spell, another layer of red light was shrouded over the flame devils, wolf devils, and leopard devils. This time was the brute force colony spell. This was just the beginning. If his arcane magic was allowed to be released continuously, the combat effectiveness of the army of devils could at least be doubled, and their ability to survive on the battlefield would be greatly enhanced. This was still under the premise that Garbo did not use devil's deification. The time for deification was limited, and he obviously had to wait until the battle was at its most critical moment. However, he did not know that he had become the target of Yanmi. Unlike Garbo, Stolas and Phoenix had not yet made an action because their casting distance was not as far as Garbo. They all aimed at opponents, so it was better to go close to the southeast fortress first. At this time, Garbo was still 10 miles from the southeast fortress, and a few single spells could attack this far, therefore he had no idea of himself under the risk of being attacked. At the southeast fortress, Yanmi took off his cloak, revealing an old face, iron-grey skin with a bit of metallic texture, but his eyes were very strange, not like those possessed by undead creatures at all. A pair of green eyes were crystal clear, transparent, and only in the depths of his pupil there was a slight turquoise flame beating. Yanmi raised his hand and scratched it in the empty sky, and suddenly a huge bow appeared in his grasp. The length of this huge bow exceeded his height and was dark gold. However, the contribution was a touch of 7 colors. As soon as the bow came out, Jiao Yonghao felt as if his soul was about to be sucked away. The bow had many gorgeous patterns, but it was cleverly concealed in the dark gold color. Yanmi held the middle part of the bow in his left hand, slowly lifted it in front of him, and put his right hand on the bowstring. Unexpectedly, there was no arrow, and he slowly pulled it. At the moment when he began to draw the bow, Jiao Yonghao subconsciously retreated a few steps, and the people around him could not help but also get out of the way. Yanmi seemed to have an invisible airstream rising like a flame, and the huge bow also had invisible airflow in the process, but strangely, both the dark gold on the bow and the 7 colors on the bowstring had dimmed down inconspicuously. Is this a divine weapon? Jiao Yonghao could also be regarded as a knowledgeable man. Seeing the extraordinary features of this huge bow at a glance, he couldn't help but take a cool breath. This eternal hero actually had a divine weapon. And it seemed that this was not only a divine weapon, but also seemed to have something to do with elves. It was because some of the patterns on the bow were so unique that only the ancient elves had them. Jiao Yonghao could not tell what it was, but he could see that it had something to do with the elves. Garbo's third arcane magic was about to be completed. He was an individual devil god and did not belong to any race, so he did not care much about the previous deaths of devils and wizards. It was just that he was very dismissive of Samigina's command. In terms of overall control, as the god of arcane magic, he always thought that he was the first in the world, but because he did not have direct combat effectiveness, he had never been able to become the commander-in-chief of the front line. Therefore, he felt somewhat depressed and frustrated. Finally, when it was time for him to go to war, the arcane devil god Garbo would put everything he had to the battle, so that all the devils could see the strength of his pure assistance. Just then, suddenly, Garbo's heart tightened, and the magic he was casting got interrupted by himself. He only felt as if his heart was clenched by a big invisible hand. It was an unspeakable pain. He could not help humming slightly and subconsciously looked in the direction of the southeast fortress. What he saw was a pair of green eyes and a huge bow. Impossible. With such a long distance, no bow and arrow could reach. Just when Garbo was inexplicably shocked, he still believed that it was impossible for the other side to successfully attack him. All of a sudden, on the top of the southeast fortress, a green light rose into the sky and climbed to a height of more than 100 meters. The sudden appearance of the flame really startled the Devil's clan, and then, in the emerald green light, a dot of 7 colors radiated and shot out like a meteor chasing the moon. I'm the target. Garbo roared in his heart, and the strong sense of crisis in his heart instantly aroused the power of his own devil pillar. In the devil's camp, the devil pillar that belonged to the arcane devil god Garbo suddenly burst into a strong dark blue luster, and the runes on the pillar seemed to come back to life, rising instantly, forming a larger symbol and flying straight to Garbo in the distance. However, Garbo's discovery was still a little too late after all. The moment that little 7 colors light came out of the giant bow, all the air 100 meters away from Yanmi's body burst, and the colorful light dot flew out not higher than 100 meters and disappeared in the air. It was fast for Garbo to perform demonization, but just as the huge dark blue symbol flew behind him and even began to merge with his body, the air in front of him suddenly cracked, and a little colorful light appeared in an instant. What Garbo had time to do was to put his huge blue wand in front of him. However, the next moment, the colorful light disappeared again. The huge symbol behind Garbo quickly melted into his body, causing his body to expand rapidly, and hundreds of runes circled around his body, which was the combination arcane magic symbol. In the state of deification, Garbo casted arcane magic again, and its power was doubled. However, at this time, the arcane devil god was suspended there motionless with his eye gazing into the distance. There was a look of disbelief in his eyes. The cursed devil god Stolas and the dark phoenix also felt bad, and the two devil gods did not hesitate to trigger their own deification. A quack sound came from the cursed devil god Stolas, and a pair of black wings instantly unfolded. The orange devil pillar in the distance shone, and the original humanoid body turned into a huge crow with a wingspan of up to 10 meters. His eyes and mouth were orange. The devil deification of the dark phoenix was much more magnificent, with a length of more than 20 meters and a wider wingspan. The dazzling black body was covered with dark golden flame lines, which he then completely turned into the dark phoenix. However, their demonization did not affect Garbo, and at the same time they changed, a trace of colorful light began to spill over from Garbo's body, and then, with a loud boom right in the center, guarded by many arcane symbols, Garbo's body suddenly exploded, and countless colorful lights burst out. It was so frightening that the cursed devil god Stolas and the dark phoenix quickly dodged. Garbo, the arcane devil god, ranked 33rd in the devil's clan, became the first devil god to perish on the battlefield after the beginning of the war. Sami Jina, who sat still in the leader chair earlier, suddenly stood up with a glimmer of horror in his eyes. Although Garbo was not good at fighting, his practice level was level 9 of rank 3. If he had combined with his devil pillar to perform the deification, he could even have more than level 9 of rank 5 of combat effectiveness, and his whole court assistance would be even stronger. However, he was killed by the enemy. Wasn't it said that there were no divine weapons in the warrior temple? But the colorful light just now was clearly emitted by the divine weapon. The divine weapon of bow and arrow? The scariest divine weapon on the battlefield was undoubtedly the scepter that increases magic, but when it came to the greatest threat to individuals, nothing could surpass bows and arrows. The emergence of the divine weapon bow could be said to be the greatest threat to any devil, even Sami Jina, who ranked 4th. The southeast fortress was much more difficult to attack than he had imagined, and Sami Jina's face became extremely distorted. Dang, when the giant bow fell to the ground, Yanmi, who was holding the bow with his left hand, was very calm, but the light in his eyes was much dimmed. Obviously, it was not easy for him to shoot the arrow that killed a devil god in a second. However, this attack was an unparalleled increase in the morale of the entire southeast fortress. The enemy had arrived. As a powerful race of magic and physical combat, flame devils began to shoot out fireballs like crazy at the head of the city as soon as they arrived under the city. At the same time, they used their tall and defensive bodies to protect the wolf devils and the leopard devils behind them. Earth magic fell from the sky, bombarding the area in front of the city wall on a large scale. And these elemental stones disappeared right after the bombardment and never became stepping stones for devils. 500 earth wizards made efforts at the same time to temporarily fend off the enemy attacked by the ground. However, the wolf devil's body was tough, and their combat effectiveness was even stronger. The leopard devil was also extremely fast, therefore, the damage to them by falling stone was quite limited, as it could only stop them from attacking the city. After Yanmi's shot, Chiao Yonghao had completely regained his composure and gave orders one after another. In front of the city wall, all were covered with shields. In the city, an army of knights already gathered, ready to go out and fight. It was only in the wilderness that the knights played the greatest role. The task of the fire wizard was mainly against the enemy's air force. Two-headed devils and bird devils came at the same time. Bird devils were good at physical attacks, while two-headed devils were both good at dark and fire magic attacks and certain physical attack abilities. The threat to the southeast fortress was big. However, the deterrent power of Yanmi's arrow just now was so strong that the speed of these flying devils' approach had obviously decreased a lot. Even the cursed devil god Stolas and the dark phoenix stayed a bit far from the city. They were deified, but still they were not entirely sure whether they could escape from the terrifying bow attack just now or not. Although only one devil god got killed by Yanmi, it could be said that he had reduced the role of the 3 devil gods to a minimum by the virtue of his own efforts. Sami Jina, the undead devil god, quickly stood up to command the battle. Beavrin, Hagati, you two go help Stolas and Phoenix. Roger. 2 majestic figures flashed from behind Sami Jina, turning into iron black and brown shadows respectively, and flew straight to the battlefield. Ranked 46th among the 72 devil god, Beavrin, the monster devil god, was 10 meters tall, and looked like an enlarged version of the baboon. He had a strong melee ability but without any magic ability. Covered with copper and iron bones, the defensive force was amazing. Ranked 48th among the 72 devil gods, Hagati, the frightening bull devil god, was a giant bull and was one of the best defensive devil gods among the 72 devil gods. Samijina sent the two of them out for a simple purpose, to protect the relatively weak cursed devil god and the dark phoenix, so that their magical powers could be brought into full play on the battlefield, thus reversing the current unfavorable situation. It was much easier for monsters and bulls to deal with bows and arrows. While Samijina reinforced the two devil gods ahead, the attack and defense of the southeast fortress was in full swing. At a time when the mana of the earth wizards became weak, the wolf devils and the leopard devils had begun to attack the city in an all-out way. They were all the main fighting races of the devils, and their strength was quite strong. The climbing ability of the flame devils were weak, but once they were allowed to climb up to the head of the city, it would pose an even greater threat to the warriors in the city. The shield warriors bravely carried out a full-scale collision with the wolf devils and the leopard devils in front of them. Although the professionals of the warrior temple were the weakest among the 6 temples, they were also the largest in number. Shield warriors in front, berserkers in the rear against the wolf devils and the leopard devils. They launched a life-and-death battle. The high levels of the warrior temple all appeared on the battlefield, and no matter how strong the wolf devils and the leopard devils were, they were much worse than the warriors at level 6 or above. A huge golden sword light swept across the city, hundreds of meters long on the wall. All the wolf devils, leopard devils and a few flame devils that had just climbed up were halved and fallen. It was Qiu Yonghao's attack. The warriors at level 8 and above stood directly on the tower, making it impossible for the wolf devils and leopard devils to cross the line. However, the Devil's Clan's attack from the air also arrived, and the magic of two-headed devils and bird devils' lightning spears continued to fall towards the head of the southeast fortress, causing losses to the army of the Temple Union. Fortunately, Qiu Yonghao's tactics were very successful, and the wizards were well protected. However, they could not fight hard back against the enemy in the air. To the surprise of Samijina, the undead devil god, for some reason, the devil-guided cannon, the most powerful defense weapon in the southeast fortress, did not show its power, and seemed to have all disappeared into thin air. This made the devil's air force more effective. Poof! A soldier fell to the ground and his throat was cut inexplicably, and suddenly there was a gap in the city wall, but it was quickly filled by flesh and blood by the berserker behind. Wizards, the explorations. There are the Daiku clan people. The explorations quickly shone at the top of the city, and sure enough, a large number of the invisible Daiku clan appeared on the battlefield between the leopard devils and the wolf devils. Even with exploratory lighting, the Daiku clan were like transparent clouds of smoke that were difficult to detect in this war. It immediately aggravated the casualties on the head of the southeast fortress. In the air, the monster devil god and the frightening bull devil god were finally in place, and under their protection, the dark phoenix and the cursed devil god Stolas finally approached the city. Their magic was all in preparation. At this point in the battle, the Devil's Clan finally gained the upper hand by virtue of the strong strength of the integration of space and land. A dark green light suddenly became the focus of public attention, with a twisted channel in the process of falling from the air. The cursed devil god Stola's eyes were full of ferocious color. Go to hell, damned human beings. You killed Garbo. I'd like to see how you can resist my corrosive swamp. The name sounded simple, but it was a real forbidden spell, full of curse power, aimed not only at people, but also at the city wall. But just at this time, a fiery red figure suddenly sprang up from the city tower, and a pair of huge fire wings spread out, pushing his body like lightning to the dark green light. The weapon in his hand was a spear, and at the front of the spear, a sparkling fiery red crystal suddenly appeared at the tip of the spear. The fiery red crystal just pierced into the dark green ball of light. The dark green light ball seemed to explode as soon as it stopped in the air. But the fiery red crystal that pierced into it exploded first. It was a mixture of red and green flame instantly rising in the air into a huge fire, and then, the flying fiery red figure pointed the spear to the distant sky. With the spear pointing at the sky in the hands of the red figure, the red and green flames suddenly turned into a huge pillar of fire and rushed directly into the camp of the two-headed devils nearby. Hundreds of two-headed devils screamed mournfully under the terrifying flames. Even if a few devils wanted to rescue them, it was too late. It was a warrior whose whole body was covered in fiery red armor. His spear was also fiery red. While the blazing flames rose, his body looked illusory because of the heat around his body, and no one could see what he looked like at all. Such a powerful warrior. The 4 devil gods in the air were surprised, although they were not afraid of such an opponent, but the warrior's practice level still surprised them. It seemed to be just a crystal, but it clearly was the use of domain skills. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy to dissolve a forbidden spell that had been in power for a long time. Hagati, the frightening bull devil god, roared, and his huge body suddenly soared by 100 meters. His weapon, which was a huge long stick, grew bigger with the surge of his body and completely protected the cursed devil god Stolas behind him. The giant stick swept across and went straight and bombarded the red warrior. The warrior gave a cold hum, the forefinger of the spear in his hand along with his body suddenly burst up. At the same time, the spear rose directly into the air with a circle of fire wheels, and a fire dragon flew high into the air in a rapid whirl. As soon as his body flashed, he fell back to the head of the city and avoided Hagati's stick, the frightening bull devil god. The fire wheel exploded high in the air and turned into fire blades that scattered one after another. It immediately launched a heavy blow to the two-headed devils, and hundreds of two-headed devils perished under this blow. The frightening bull devil god was furious, and with his own strong defense, he didn't care about the magic shot from the city tower. Behind him, the virtual shadow of a giant bull appeared slowly. The giant bull was all brown and yellow, and only its eyes were white. The smell of terror rose in an instant, and Hagati's thick muscles began to burst, mixed with strong blood vessels to make his already huge body even more terrifying. The stick in his hand also turned into a pillar of light, with a bright brown light. Devil deification. As one of the most powerful devil gods in the Devil's clan, he showed his strongest strength and suddenly fell toward the southeast fortress. With more than 150 meters in his hands and a giant stick with a chest diameter of 10 meters, he went straight to the city wall. By this attack of this giant stick, not to mention how many people would die, the entire southeast fortress wall might be blown open by him and a huge gap would appear. Just then, a yellow figure suddenly appeared in mid-air. The yellow figure looked strange. He was topless, his skin was iron gray, but his whole body glowed with a strong yellow light. The majestic muscles showed strength and beauty, and the weapon in the hand was also a long stick. The top of the bald head reflected the yellow glow of the body, and a pair of eyes glowed with yellow fire. In the face of the terrifying stick of Hagati, the frightening bull devil god, he unexpectedly greeted him with a long stick in his hand. The size and momentum of the two sides were completely out of proportion. Boom! There was a clap of thunder over the southeast fortress, and the deafening sound made all the officers and warriors in the battle tremble, and the battlefield even came to a momentary standstill. In a shocking scene, the body of Hagati, the frightening bull devil god, was shocked as he flew back thousands of meters away, and although the bald warrior was also pushed away, he quickly stabilized himself in the air. Was it equal? A human warrior was on a par with Hagati, the frightening bull devil god, in terms of strength. This was incredible. Hagati had already exerted his demonization and reached his strongest state. Even if he was not particularly good at fighting, his physical strength could rank in the top 10 of all the devil gods. Hee. Interesting. The bald warrior laughed before he flashed, took the initiative to fight, and went straight to Hagati, the frightening bull devil god. The previous fiery red figure also reappeared on the battlefield and went straight to the cursed devil god Stolas. There was no doubt that these two warriors were as strong as the level of the devil gods in this war, and they were no less inferior to the cursed devil god and the frightening bull devil god on a one-on-one basis, and they even slightly restrained each other in attributes. This had to be taken seriously by Sami Jina, the undead devil god who commanded the battle from a distance. How can there be such a strong man in the southeast fortress? Sami Jina was a little stunned, just as the Temple Federation knew about the devils, and the devils also had a deep study of the strong men of the Temple Federation. Sami Jina knew about the strong men of 9th level in the warrior temple very clearly, but in his impression, fire warriors and earth warriors did not seem to have such a strong existence. Naturally, with his practice level, Sami Jina knew the bald warrior could compete with Hagati, the frightening bull devil god, because he was a strong domain user. The increase in the domain became his power, so that he could be on a par with the devil-deified Hagati. While Hagati ranked 48th and did not have his own domain, his level 9 of rank 2 practice level plus the devil deification did not take much advantage compared with the other party. If he couldn't defeat the other party in a devil-deified state, then once the devil deification disappeared, he would be at a disadvantage. The combat effectiveness of the famous fire warriors was even stronger, not only in domain, but also in domain skill. Fire could not restrain curses as well as light, but domain-level fire was different. It was not easy to defeat his opponent for the cursed devil god Stolas while he was afraid of his opponent's closeness. Fortunately, there was no problem with the monster devil god Beavron and the dark phoenix. And then a large area of dark flames had fallen on the head of the fortress city. The function of the priest appeared at this moment, and a golden light was propped up above the city head to resist the erosion of the dark flames. On the other hand, the Yanmi on city power picked up his bow again and gazed at the enchanted phoenix. The previous scene of killing Garbo brought so much psychological pressure to Phoenix that his magic was interrupted once as he quickly dodged behind the monster devil god Beverin. Now his state of mind had settled down. Beverin dared not attack the city like this, and his first task was to protect Phoenix. Among the devil gods, ranking determined status. Phoenix, who ranked 37th, did not have his own domain, but he still ranked much higher than Beverin, who ranked 46th. It could be said that Yanmi, by the virtue of his own strength, killed a devil god and effectively contained 2 devil gods. This reduced the combat effectiveness of Phoenix a lot, and also made the monster devil god Beverin dare not to attack the city easily. Until now, most of the eternal heroes in the southeast fortress had not stepped in, as they were trying to hide their power. "Lord Chiu, would you like to use our arrangements?" an old man asked in a low voice next to Chiu Yonghao, and he had just killed a large area of the enemy with the sword domain. This old man was also an eternal hero, and there were 2 people around him. Although their bodies were covered under a big cloak, the fluctuations of the elements around their bodies were extremely sticky. "No, not now. The devils still haven't come out yet," Chiu Yonghao said quietly. At this time, his state of mind had completely calmed down, and after seeing the powerful strength of the eternal heroes, Chiu Yonghao's confidence had been greatly enhanced. With these eternal heroes in place, how many chances would Sami Jina have? As he spoke, Chiu Yonghao rose to his feet and devoted himself to the battle. As the former master of the warrior temple, he understood the mystery of the sword and the domain of the sword, and he was very lethal on the battlefield. In order to avoid more casualties, Chiu Yonghao led a warrior above level 6 to rise against the bird devils and the 2-headed devils. The battlefield was stuck in a stalemate. And with the priest's resistance to magic, human casualties gradually increased. Sami Jina looked coldly at the situation on the battlefield, and for some reason, he always felt as if he had missed something. Since the beginning of the war, he had invested a troop of 150,000 armies. Although it was not the strongest race he controlled, it was still close to 1/3 of the total power level. Judging from the current situation, it was quite beneficial to them, and the southeast fortress was stuck on the battlefield, and he believed that as long as there was more investment, the war situation was bound to develop one-sided. However, he was in no hurry now, and he didn't have much pity for his elite army. He only cared about his own people. He felt that the life and death of other races had nothing to do with him. If more of them died, and when they successfully plundered human resources, their own people could gain a little more. Most of the people who had not been sent to battle, except for an army of 100,000 devils, were the same race with the devil god. Although Sami Jina was in a high position, he must always give some face to other devils, otherwise they might quarrel in front of the god of devils and that would look ugly. "The battle at the southeast fortress has already begun," Long Qianyin said to Long Haochen. They two of grandfather and grandson were in a small conference room, and in addition to them, so were all the members of the Dawn of Light hunting troop. Long Haochen nodded and said, "The information sent by Yu Yi is very accurate. For us, this is an assured battle. Sami Jina is in the trap. What about the other side?" Long Qianyin said, "The enemy has also been found on the other side. It is estimated that within 1 or 2 days, the army led by Marbus, the Hell Devil God, and Warlifer, the Bear Devil God, will reach the Wan Shoguan. The cooperation between the Hell Devil's clan and the Bear Devil's clan is even more troublesome. However, although the old guy Chen Hongyu is usually very stingy, he hides a lot of good things. I'm afraid it's not easy for Marbus and Warlifer to take advantage of him." Long Haochen said, "We have less than 2 days from the 3 days God of Devils mentioned. I believe he is also watching the battlefield from over there. Even if the news is not as fast as ours, he will eventually know. Just let him be happy for a while. I'm afraid he thought we didn't know what was going on there, and that we are not prepared for Southeast Fortress and Wan Shoguan." Long Qianyin sighed and said, "It's a pity that too many resources will be consumed this time. However, as long as we can determine the situation in the first war and defeat the devils, it's worth it. I'm not worried about the Southeast Fortress and the Wan Shoguan, the most important thing is the God of Devils." "Haochen, are you really sure that you can resist the attack of the God of Devils?" Long Haochen smiled, but he did not give his grandpa the answer. Was he really confident? Of course, there was some confidence. But could he defend God of Devil's attack? How could he know before he fights? And according to the analysis of the god of devils from Yi Xiaolei, he had almost no chance. Of course, this was the case without counting in Hao Yu. And Hao Yu was his last card, but only as the last resort that he would use this card because the emergence of Hao Yu would certainly make the god of devils crazy. Kia, make sure to stay safe. Long Haochen patted Kia's hand beside him. Kia smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll be back soon." After saying this, she turned around and left quietly. Wang Yuanyuan said with a wry smile, "If the quota is not too limited, I will go. I am not qualified for the title of the Lord of the Warrior Temple." Long Haochen smiled and said, "Don't say that. The final battle will only be here. What we have to face is the most terrifying force of the Devil's Clan, and there are plenty of opportunities for you to take action. Outside Yulongguan, the Devil's Camp. Your Majesty, the army led by Sami Jina has arrived at the southeast fortress." He attacked the southeast fortress immediately. The moon god Agares reported the latest news to the god of devils. The god of devils laid on his side on his dragon bed and smiled calmly. "He's in a hurry," he said. "But it doesn't hurt to lose a little." Agares could naturally understand the meaning of the god of devils. "Your Majesty, should we also exert some pressure on Yulongguan?" The god of devils shook his head with a faint smile on his face. "There's no need to hurry. It should be humans who are in a hurry right now. I want to play a game with Long Haochen. Conquering slowly is more fun. He will not surrender to me until his faith is completely crushed. Mankind has been accumulating wealth for 6,000 years, and it is time for them to hand something over. You send my orders to Sami Jina and Marbus. I don't care what they do, but they must invade inside the temple in the shortest possible time and launch an offensive against the holy city." "Roger." Agares respectfully answered and quickly left the tent. Going outside of the tent, Agares frowned slightly and thought to himself, this time, he was afraid that mankind really did not have a chance, as His Majesty used overt scheme only this time. A day later at the southeast fortress. The walls of the entire southeast fortress had almost been stained with blood of various colors, and there were a large number of signs of destruction on the walls. Fortunately, the walls of the fortress were solid enough and were guarded by the magic array. The surface was riddled with holes, but the inside was still solid. The battle had been going on all day and night. Sami Jina, like crazy, mobilized the devil army to launch wave after wave of offense without giving the southeast fortress a chance to catch their breath. The 500,000 troops fought in turn, and when the first wave of offensive ended, the second wave rushed in immediately. In one day and one night, in addition to being caught by surprise at the beginning, which led to heavy losses for the Magic Eye Wizards and the Wild Devils, in general, they still occupied an overwhelming advantage. Although they continuously repelled by the southeast fortress, the loss on the southeast fortress was not small, and the resistance seemed to be getting weaker and weaker. If the knights in the city had not come out to attack several times, the loss would have been greater. However, the Devil's Clan's loss was even greater. This siege had no cannon fodder, all elite. According to statistics, 60,000 soldiers out of 500,000 Devil army had been destroyed in battle. One could see how fierce the offensive was. The humans' loss was not as great as that of the Devils because there were still half of the humans left. Among them, in the southeast fortress, the most killed and injured were the shield soldiers with the strongest defense. In most cases, they died to protect wizards, summoners, and priests. Shield soldiers guarded legal professionals with their lives and shields. Therefore, up to now, some of the 8,000 legal professionals had been injured, but very few, less than 300, had been killed. Such a proportion had to be said to be a miracle in such a fierce battlefield. Wizards, summoners, and priests were now red-eyed and desperate to fight. Day and night, as legal professionals, they never went to town to have a rest. It was not Chiu Yonghao who refused to let them go, but they refused to leave. Watching their companions die in battle to protect themselves, the wizards all turned red. At least half of the more than 300 legal professions died in order to burn their lives to cast magic. The strong men of the 6 temples of the southeast fortress had all killed fiercely and pushed back the aggressive offensive of the devils, and they were now even crazier than the devils. At this point in the battle, willpower and fighting spirit were often more important than strength. Under the city of the southeast fortress, the corpse had long been piled up like a mountain. "Damn it, Sami Jina is crazy." Chiu Yonghao stood wearily at the city tower and scolded angrily. A day and a night had passed, and it was soon the next day, but the offensive of the devils had not abated at all. Moreover, Chiu Yonghao could clearly see that the devil army had long been very tired, and those who were strong couldn't even fight with 80% of their strength. But even so, Sami Jina refused to give up and kept directing them to attack the city. This army of 500,000 devils had not had a rest since the beginning, when they marched here. Constantly fighting on the battlefield, no human commander would command his army like this, but Sami Jina did. And he had killed 4 tribal commanders with dissenting opinions. Over a dozen devil gods, other than Garbo, who was the first to fall, and other devil gods also went into battle in turn. Although they didn't make it through the defense, they greatly restrained the strength of the southeast fortress. How long can our arrangement last? Chiao Yonghao asked the eternal hero who was covered in a cloak around him. The sticky light element was being injected into Chiao Yonghao's body from the hands of this eternal hero, who was obviously a wizard. These eternal heroes were transferred from the assassin temple. There will be no problem in 2 days. My arrangement can last up to 5 days, therefore at least 2 days apart from the time for preparations. All right. Chiao Yonghao clenched his teeth. I don't believe that Sami Jina can attack for 2 more days without being trapped by us. I will fight to death and stand up until that time. The number of soldiers and resources gathered in the southeast fortress was quite large, and as long as the strong men were not suppressed too much by each other, the battlefield that seemed to be less resistant would not collapse. Sami Jina was also a little restless at the moment. Day and night had passed, and human resistance was still tenacious. What surprised him most was not the availability of the 6 temples of the southeast fortress, but the addition of 5 or 6 domain-level warriors of the southeast fortress, especially the one with the divine weapon bow and arrow. It was because of his threat that the devil god who went up did not dare to attack with all his strength and was wary of being attacked. On the devil's side, the morale had begun to waver. With the exception of 100,000 devils, all other races had fought in turn, and all had suffered varying degrees of damage. More importantly, after a continuous rapid march and a day and night battle, the devil army was very tired. The voice of discontent underlings was getting louder and louder, and even the way the devils looked at Sami Jina was getting worse and worse. Any fool could see what Sami Jina had in mind. His own army of devils had a nice rest for a day and a night, and they were now at the best state. But Sami Jina did not let them go to war, lest his direct line devils should be damaged. If not for Sami Jina and the 4 devil gods around him who were not too powerful, other devil gods would have put forward different opinions. Everyone's patience had a limit, except for that of Sami Jina. The highest-ranked devil god here was the 11th post. If it were to go on like this, Sami Jina might not be able to control the situation. After all, he had already committed some public anger. Let's go talk to the undead devil god. One devil god finally couldn't help and stood up abruptly. 12 of the 16 devils responded to his call and walked towards Sami Jina together. At this time, Sami Jina slowly rose from his position and said in a quiet voice, "Pass the order, the army in front of the battlefield right now will stop. The vicious devil troop will all attack. I will lead them to the battle and kill the enemy." As he spoke, a pair of huge devil wings spread slowly behind him, and he looked coldly at the devil gods coming over to him. All of a sudden, those devil gods stopped coming forward. The army of devils in front retreated like a tide, while an army of 100,000 devils marched slowly ahead. The great devils above the 6th level flapped their wings and flew into the air, while those below the 6th level were all infantry or cavalry, forming a neat formation and slowly closing in on the southeast fortress. Sami Jina, the undead devil god, finally used his most powerful army, the vicious devil race. The continuous fighting put great pressure on the southeast fortress. Although the devils had a great loss, so did the southeast fortress. The strong men were now tired, the warriors were sharply reduced, and the wizards consumed too much magic, and were at their weakest time. This video will end here.